and I'm going to let her tell you who she is.
So I am a psychotherapist, which is a person-centred talking therapist. So when somebody comes to me with their problems, we sit and talk about it, I listen to their story and try and keep them in the centre of everything, and work through what they want to work through in order to feel happier.
Okay, cool. Blimey.
Yeah.
You're one of them clever like things. Do you know what I mean?
I also swear a lot.
Yeah, good. Don't mate. Don't worry about that. Right. You also, however, are heavily tattooed.
Yes.
With some amazing tattoos. Right. Who did?
Right, hang on. Let me strip off for you, Jim.
Just strip off, Holly. That's great.
There we go.
Right. So you've got an amazing David Jason on the inside of your bicep there.
I do indeed.
Right. I mean, I think it's probably necessary, you know, with you, because you've got the same person did your portraits.
Yes.
Is that right? So you found someone you felt entirely comfortable with.
Yeah, trusted.
Right, trusted.
Trusted.
That's the word.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you get tattooed, Holly?
Why not? I think is the biggest question for me. So my tattoo journey started on my back with an idea of through trauma, commemorating my dad. He had a brain hemorrhage when I was 13 and went from a perfectly healthy but very grumpy, angry man to suddenly completely changing.
Right.
Overnight, had his skull cut open, had years of rehabilitation, had to learn to read and write again, and had a scar on the top of his head where summer, wind, rain, scorching heat would wear a beanie.
Right.
So my first tattoo was awful. I had to go and get the tattoo artist out of bed to come and do the session, massive red flag.
Yeah.
Did I give a shit? No, I was 16.
Doing it anyway. Which is illegal, by the way.
It is. Don't do it. It's
do that.
bad. And it was a skull with wings and with ivy coming over one side of the skull where the scar was.
Right.
Did that, was awful, got it covered over with the same concept, and it's now bloody massive.
Okay.
And that was my first tattoo, really similar to you. I hid it for years until at one point I was hoovering and I bent over, my dad went, "What the fuck is that?" And I was like,
That's for you, Dad.
Yeah, it literally was my response, "This is for you." And then he cried and it was fine, and it stemmed from there. And my thing has always been, if I meet an artist that I trust and that I just click with and connect with, then we work from there. I'd say most of mine, all apart from maybe 1, 2, maybe 3, have a deeper meaning.
Yeah.
And all kind of stem from some sort of trauma, but coming out of that trauma and recovery. And I think that's one thing that we don't often talk about is the recovery from that trauma. So for me, my pieces are all the recovery and the reminder that, I mean, my dad passed away, and that's where this one all started. It's all coffee related for him, because our thing was coffee, and that's the coffee mug that me and him used to sit and drink coffee every day. And I literally sat with Brad Comfort at Serpentine Tattoos to do my first memorial tattoo for my dad when he passed away. And I just came with the idea, designed it myself, and he went, "Wouldn't it be funny if we just did a coffee sleeve?" And I went, "Shall we?" And he just within 30 seconds was just spewing out ideas of what we could do.
Right.
And sitting with somebody who was equally as excited as me, sitting there going, "Let's do it." Right. Next month I was booked in, and for that, like every month for 11, 12 months, we were just going mental. It was ridiculous.
The one of my personal hates when you go to a tattoo shop, right? Whatever you're getting, and the response you get is, "Oh yeah, oh whatever."
No.
Do you know what I mean?
I'm out.
I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
If you walk in here and you want an infinity symbol with a feather on it, right? Okay, with your...
Not judging.
No, the thing is, if you want that and it's important, I will say this, right? I will say to them, have you arrived at this? What's your reasoning for arriving at this? Do you want this, or do you want us to expand on what's going on? If they say, "I want this," you go, "Brilliant." And then normally, like Mickey or Talon will take that on, and they'll do that with a smile on their face and respect the person's reasoning.
Trust and respect with your artist.
If you haven't found respect from the people that are tattooing you, then go somewhere else. Walk away. That includes here. If I'm ever negative to anyone that comes in here, 1, pick me up on it, and 2, walk out the door. I don't deserve your business.
Equally though, as a tattoo artist, it must be really, I mean, I'm aftercare queen. I will look after my ink because it's on me forever. But I'm sure you guys have experienced people coming in, getting their work done. You see them a couple of months later and you're like, did you take a cheese grater to your arm?
Yeah.
Because that aftercare, you've spent hours creating, designing, stencil, like making this piece of art for this client. And if they then don't look after it, that must be heartbreaking. But then as a psychotherapist, my head goes, why? Why did you sit through hours of pain to then actually not then care for it afterwards? What does that say about you? What are you going through in order to not do that? So that's when my kind of...
Does that, just furthering that on, does that mean that, you know, if they're not looking after something, do you think that might be that it wasn't important to them in the first place enough to look after it afterwards? Or was it just the fact that they needed it?
Potentially. I think unless you sit with that person and really unpick that, it's really difficult to say and not make assumptions. I think part of the reason why potentially people get tattoos is it's one of the only pains we're in control of. If I'm in too much pain, I can tap out and it's done.
Yeah.
And especially if it's a tattoo that is about trauma,
Yeah.
when I'm then getting something tattooed and it hurts too much, the ability for me to say no and stop that person and be in control of that ending, because a lot of trauma stems from not being in control of the result or not being in control of that process. So as somebody who's gone through trauma and is having a tattoo that is potentially about that trauma, the ability to be in control of that and stop it,
Do you know what?
that's so powerful.
Do you know what's horrendous about what you just said? I've never fucking thought of that.
I've never tapped out.
Well,
What does
no,
that say about me?
Yeah, but no.
I've tapped out once.
I tell you what I almost did last Wednesday.
Yeah.
Right? There was the last half an hour of my tattoo was, I'd fired Talon 3 times because he was tattooing me, and then reinstated him immediately.
Yeah.
But secondly, it was really fucking hurting me. And also, it was then that I thought, because I knew we were doing this show, it was then I thought, why am I doing this?
Right.
Why
Yeah.
am I sat on this thing? And then I realised, you know why? Because I fucking like having tattoos, and that's it.
For me, as a therapist, I said this to Kels, who did this lead, a bit more on this lead yesterday. It is my one time to stop. I cannot tell you, other than my tattoo sessions, any other time, potentially in the last 5, if not more years, where I've sat still and not moved for longer. Like yesterday was 5 hours. For 5 hours. When else do you do that?
You don't.
Right? So as a therapist, me sitting there, my day job is sitting and listening to, in my day job, children's worries.
Yep.
And looking after their mental health when their world is crumbling around them. When I get home, I've got dinner to cook, I've got a dog to look after, I've got a fucking how old are you? 34?
36.
Good.
30,
getting
mentally 14-year-old man to make sure he's fed and looked after and paying attention to life and what's going on, paying for a way, like all of this sort of stuff. Life doesn't stop.
No.
Until I sit in that chair.
Right. That's really interesting, because I've thought about that before. I just thought, I've got 3 hours to sit here and do nothing.
But that's terrifying, because then I'm left alone with my own thoughts.
Yeah. Do you know what I did last time? I've never done this before. Like, my wife has never seen me get tattooed before. I asked her to come in and talk to me, because I knew it was going to be painful.
That's it.
And she came in, and she didn't judge me for the tattoos. She doesn't like tattoos. No, that's not true. She doesn't have any.
Yes.
And it's not hard. Right? So she came in and sat and talked to me
Yeah.
about things. We did a whole marketing plan.
Perfect.
Because apparently we're grown-ups that do marketing plans.
Oh.
Whoa. But, right, and it came out. And then this marketing plan, okay, a lot of my talk was incoherent.
Of course.
Because,
in and amongst swearing, obviously.
stabbing neck thing,
Yeah.
right? But out of that came a conversation that we wouldn't have had the time to have.
There we go.
So is a really good thing to think of.
But like we said, as much as that was really positive for you, for me it's really positive. I sit there, I chat to my artists if I want to, but everyone I've sat with, they know I just breathe. I will breathe through it, we will have a chat, we'll have a giggle, I'll sit and with my back piece, I sat and read a book. I can't think of a time where I have the time, the space and the mental capacity to just sit and read, because I can't move. No. Unless I tap out, I'm not moving anywhere.
Yeah.
So I can be alone, but when you are dealing with trauma and potentially you're not in the space to have dealt with it long enough to be able to sit there, how terrifying must it be if you're not in the space where you're able to sit on your own?
If you're not at peace.
If you're not at peace with potentially what's happening.
Yeah.
how terrifying is it to be sat on your own with your own thoughts?
So then actually it could be detrimental. Where we find a positive, that could be a huge negative.
Yeah, and
Never thought of that.
thinking about the tattoo artist then, that's a real physical close connection with that client. If that client is going through something in that moment, you're going to massively feel it, because you are literally connected through needle, through person. What are you then left with? You know, do you guys have any mental health support for being able to sit there? Like you said, you have people come in day after day talking about their trauma. For me as a therapist, I have to have supervision. I have to sit with another therapist qualified in supervising me to ethically be able to work in the best way possible to make sure my clients are okay. You lot don't have that. You have each other. You can sit and debrief with each other over beer.
I think nowadays that's what we do. We tend to congregate at the end of the day and have a little conversation about the reality of things. I've been in a situation recently where somebody came in and they needed a tattoo to celebrate their friend, and their friend had passed away. They'd taken their own life. And that person was coming here to be tattooed because they were self-harming. But they'd stopped self-harming. So there was a link to that, and that really upset me. Right, and I'm pretty Teflon, and I'm genuinely Teflon because I built up that caught me unawares, because I was like, oh, hold on a minute. So the only thing I did then is I'm quite good at compartmentalising things. So I went into my office, watched something about building a car, right, to completely disjoint it. Had a conversation with Mickey about, okay, that was difficult, and we decided we'd done the right thing.
Perfect.
So that was good, because then we had closure. On that situation, and I think I'm not one for buzzwords or things I don't really, understand that well. But the way I see it is I needed to step away, I needed to deflect, and then I needed conclusion.
Perfect.
So that was cool. So I did that. I know a lot of tattooers just blank out to people. They say, "Look, I'm not here for that," and they build that space, and that's great. Because they've said they're not being nasty, they're not doing that, but to do the work they do, they have to create that space around them.
Whether it's a physical or a mental space, you can have tattoo artists that say, I'm really sorry, because for me, I can't do that. Whether it's a tattoo artist, someone comes in with something especially triggering for them. There is whether a woman comes in or a person comes in, they've had a miscarriage. And the tattoo artist you sit with, you don't know if they've gone through one a couple of months before, and you're talking about your experience of going through this really traumatic event. That artist is well within their right to say, I love this concept, but I'm not in the place to do that right now. If you want me to do it, can I get in contact with you when I'm ready, when I'm okay to do that? You don't need to share your story as to why, but then it's down to the respect between artist and client to be able to go, do you know what, I'll go somewhere else because I feel like I need that for my own journey right now, or I'll wait, you tell me.
I'll wait because you can relate. The thing is as well is that I think people do see tattooists as a whole sometimes as like an automaton who just does what they're told to do. Doesn't have feelings, doesn't have that. Also, the other thing is that less and less, I mean, we're on the 5th floor, right? So if you smoke, you're screwed. You have to go downstairs, but Talon still does. So everyone knows when they come that there's going to be a break, it's good, this and that. Tattoo artists, as well as the customers, need to be looked after a little bit.
Massively.
Do you know what I mean? And I do find myself, and it's probably really annoying to them, like, so asking them if they're okay. It's, are you happy with this? Are you doing that? And I think some of that can be selfish, for me, if I'm honest.
But is selfish negative?
Oh, Christ.
All right.
Yes and no. Me being selfish for them, I'm at peace knowing they're okay.
Right.
That's selfish.
Is it?
Yeah. Because that's my need.
Okay.
For them to be okay. Now the reality is, if they turn around and say no, then we can have a conversation. I'm not that going, no, do you know what, actually I only asked it because I'm a dick. Right? But so we have to understand in this world, and it's something really is that is opening in front of me now, right? When you get tattooed, the person tattooing you is human too. And we have to be all about customer service, because I'm obsessed with that. I want people to walk in here smiling, happy, and able to function in this tattooing medium, right? So it's going to hurt you, but it's not going to hurt that much. And we make a joke.
And it's going to end.
And also, don't pull away. Just say the word stop, we will stop. That's the thing. Put everyone at ease. That little coffee machine down there, right?
Right.
I bought that because I love coffee, right? Okay, so selfish. But also, You want to come in here and talk to me about your tattoo
Yeah.
plans? We're going to sit on that sofa, we're going to drink coffee, and we're going to talk about it.
That's it.
And Mickey bought tea bags as well, because apparently there are people in the world that don't like coffee. Who saw that coming?
Are they real people?
Well, I don't know. Surprising. But, so, okay, we've looked at both sides of the story. What's your perception, and obviously it's personal theory, of people getting tattooed to help with trauma?
I think it's incredible. I think when you really break it down, you're putting yourself through more trauma to recover from trauma. However, I do think there has to be the question why asked by somebody within that process. Whether that is the artist, you just get a vibe off of someone. Why do you want that? Why do you want, like, there's just, you'll know when you need to ask that question. And then it might be that someone goes, oh, actually my nan really liked flowers. Oh, okay, well you've asked for a rose. Was that her favourite flower? Oh no, actually she really liked lilies. So talk to me about why you're getting a rose then. Oh, I don't know, okay, should we have a look at a lily then? Yeah. And you tweak that person's idea in order to help them recover. However, if somebody comes in because they think it's gonna help, but it's not, and then you're left with this potential, I mean not so much permanent now, but permanent inking of trauma and pain on your body that you've sat and put yourself through when you're mentally not ready to do that. That can be quite damaging. It's like returning to the scene of the crime.
Yeah, there's a question, when it's about bereavement, I always... there's a thing about bereavement where I always ask, right, how long it's been.
Right.
And they look at me a bit surprised, and I said, I'm not prying into your life, but I need to know this isn't a knee-jerk reaction that you will regret. And I've had tattooers pull me up on it, and I said, you need to fuck off, this is what I do.
Right. Yeah, in any other industry, you wait. So trauma especially, I work with a lot of trauma. The general rule of thumb is 6 months. Because your brain, your chemistry changes when you go through trauma. Your brain isn't settled. The dust needs to settle on your life in order for you to process that trauma and sit with it and just breathe into it. If my dad died and I went in and had a tattoo within 3 weeks, I'm not mentally able to cope with that. I'm probably not even mentally able to sit with that properly. I was still in pieces at that point. If somebody isn't ready to deal with that then, and the general rule of thumb in any other, I mean, you have time off work, you don't really enter into therapy, really you shouldn't until 6 months after the trauma, unless it's something you really significantly need. So should that be the same? Yeah, should that be the same with tattoo? Like you said, you're incredible, you're ethically incredible by going, how long's it been? But also, then we'd get into the nitty gritty of, well, what was the bereavement? So if it's a grandparent, a parent, that's one thing. But then if we say it's a partner, for example, you've got a 25-year-old that walks in and their boyfriend died in a motorbike accident and they want a portrait of them on their arm. Would an artist sit there and go, okay, you're 25, are you potentially going to have another partner? How is that other partner going to feel about you having your ex's face tattooed on your arm? And it sounds like a really heartless question in that moment, but it's an ethical question.
The thing is that I think a lot of people don't think that ethics come into what we do. Because, and there's still this shadow overcast on all of us. That it's bikers, military, gangsters, all of that. That's bullshit. I've been at every one of those things. I've been a biker, I've been a gangster, I've been an arsehole, and I was going to join the military, but luckily broke my knee. So I couldn't, right? And none of those have got any fucking reason why I'm tattooed. Right? None of it. Right? But there's still that clouded perception. And just because that is a bad perception that we see it as bad, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Exactly.
And also, so like you said, how's your new partner? Once I'm never going to have another partner because my partner's died. Yeah, mate, you will. Sorry, probably. If you're lucky enough to meet somebody else. You know, the one thing that you're also going to do is weigh that person up against the new one.
That's it.
And you've got this ghost.
Constant, literal ghost.
Right there.
Exactly. A physical representation of that trauma on your body.
I do have conversations that are difficult to have. Mostly because now I'm old enough to do it and cope with it. for them, even if they can't. I've had one woman just say, fucking how rude is that? Why are you questioning me? And I said, I'll tell you what then, what we'll do is, you're angry now, but it's your anger's misguided.
Yeah, misplaced.
So go away and come back in 3 months.
Yeah.
Right? Do me the favour of giving yourself the space.
Yeah.
Well, guess what happened? 3 months later, she came back, shook my hand, said, thank
That's
you.
it.
I don't actually want to be tattooed.
Yeah.
But she came back to tell me that.
And it might only be 1 out of 20 people that do that.
Yeah.
But I would rather be that person that comes back and goes, oh my God, you saved me. Thank you. Thank you for just making me pause. Because we don't pause. In life, we don't pause.
That is it, right? Where you live in a world with Amazon, I want it next day. I want it now.
Immediate gratification.
Right? Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah.
Right? You can't have that with tattooing.
Yeah.
Right? Unless it is a throwaway piece that you want, and that's great. And there's no trauma, there's no anything behind it. If there is any kind of trauma or any kind of investigative process into it, you need to live with these things.
That's it.
I've spent 20 years of my life telling people to print the picture out, stick it next to their bed, and if they can wake up every day for 3 months, then you're halfway there, and you're doing all that. So, in this world that we live in, I am aware that I'm quite blinkered into a world of tattoo, and it's every day for me.
Yeah.
So, you live in the outside world, dealing with people who are traumatised.
Yeah.
How does that affect your ability to deal with your own trauma? And is that, you don't have to answer anything that you're uncomfortable with?
Book.
Right. Because you have a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
Right? That coffee sleeve, you can't just say that you like the idea, presumably, you know, that was part of it.
Yeah.
That was a bond with your dad, right? And that's amazing.
Yeah.
But how do you put aside other people's traumas? How do you live your own space and your own tattoos and your own world?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
I think it's context. So, like I said, I work with kids. And there's a kind of a rule of thumb in therapy where I don't disclose to you because this is about you. If I start talking about my story, it then becomes messy and muddy because I'm now bringing my stuff into the space. However, there can be conversations where if I'm sat with a kid, for example, and an 8-year-old goes, why have you got a coffee mug on your arm? I've got this one. Again, just a scroll with no name in it. And I used to work with kids, and there was one particular boy that used to come in and work with me. He was really, really angry. And he would come in every session and write his name on my arm. And that was his little bit of...
Ownership of you?
Ownership, just that you, in that moment, he was the centre of my world. Because for that hour of me and him sitting and playing together and talking, I never asked him to not do it. It was just a case of he loved colouring in, and at one point he realised that didn't have something in it, it looked like it should do, so he put his name in it. Right. And it became his little ritual. Every time he came into the room, I know right now your whole world revolves around me, so I'm going to put my name in there. And then he knew he would come in every time and his name wouldn't be there, and he took the time to do it. If he said to me, why have you got a coffee mug there? I can go, oh, it's for my dad.
Right.
Because I'm human.
Yeah.
If he then goes, why? Oh, he passed away, so I've got pictures on my arm to remind me of him every day. Anyway, how's your week been?
Yeah.
And
so
you
answer
open
but
up.
deflect.
Right, you open up a little bit because, like you said, we're not robots.
No.
And if I shut that kid down and go, never mind that, well, actually, they go, oh, well, is that something you don't want me to know? So it's having, like you said, with experience, you know the answers. You know how to kind of keep those boundaries safely. I'm not going to go into the fact that I did CPR and I felt his ribs break and there was a burn mark on the carpet from the bloody thingy and Monsters Inc. fucking paramedics came in. I'm not going to go into that because no one needs to know that. No. They just need to know that I went through something, I've put it on my arm, how was your week? So I take these as an opportunity to talk about my nan, to talk about my dad, to share that experience with that person if the boundary lets it happen.
Yep.
In those moments when I'm sat there and that client is going through something, this means fuck all.
Yeah.
All right, I don't look like your conventional cardigan therapist. That's okay, because honestly, I probably wouldn't open up to somebody like that.
No.
But also, if I had a client come in and they hadn't seen a picture of me, I don't have pictures of me on my professional site, nothing. If they sit there and they go, oh shit, well then I'm probably not the right therapist for you.
Yeah.
But maybe give it a go. What's that about? Why are you sat uncomfortably? I've dyed my hair red since I was 9, maybe. Was there a reason for that when I was younger? Potentially. I just really like the colour red, like anything like that. But I think it's a visual representation of me as a therapist, of me as a person, that if it doesn't need to come into the room, it doesn't need to.
I get that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. It's difficult to... Boundaries are the key to everything in life.
Everything.
There are people who come in here who want to be our best friend because of who we are.
Yeah.
Now, that is... That may evolve naturally, and you know, I have friends who have come, and Nikki, and and you guys, you haven't come to the shop, but through, that's my choice, not theirs.
Yeah.
Because also a lot of time people want to become tattooist friends so they can get free tattoos.
Yeah.
Sorry, people, I'm running a business, not a charity. Off you pop.
Well, my artist said yesterday, because I mentioned that I was coming on here and was just getting their opinion on it. And she said the way that she compartmentalises is it's like having a friend for a day, but kind of like a distant friend that you don't really want to give your stuff to or share your stuff with. But in that moment, you've got to spend time with them. There are obviously, I mean, she didn't say it, but I can assume there are probably clients that come in that she's like, okay, mentally prepare myself, let's get cracking for the day. But you just have somebody that you share a bit of time with. And then once that tattoo's done, off they go.
Off they go, yeah. Because also, we're quite lucky in the fact that we have a lot of return clients. Yeah. For whatever reason. Obviously, it's because we're just fucking good at what we do, right?
And probably that you create the right environment for that. But like fuck would I had one session for the first time I tried my cover up on my back, and the guy I went to see was in Shoreditch, and he made me so uncomfortable. And Dan was even with me, so it wasn't necessarily that I was sat there and he was being flirtatious. There was just something about him that made me feel tiny. And I'm not a tiny person. Like I can carry myself.
You can deal with
fucking Croydon, right? But there was something about him that made me feel unsafe. And I sat and I thought, fuck it, go for it. Just do it. It's not going to last forever. And it is the only tattoo I've tapped out on. And I sat there for about an hour, and when I had blood running down my arse crack, it was horrendous. He was going so deep and so hard, like it was like a test of, if you're going to have this, let's fucking have it. And I went, do you know what, no, I'm done. I can't remember what I paid him, and went out, and I never contacted him again.
Good.
With an hour's worth of tattoo that looked banging, his colour packing was great, but he felt like an arsehole.
Yeah, and also didn't pay attention to your needs.
Not at all. Didn't stop. Like, for me, my artists know. 5 seconds, give it a breather. 5 seconds, give it just that's how I roll. It was horrible.
Old school tattooists as well, a lot of them, they don't have the nuances that the newer ones do today. But I mean, the thing that concerns me the most while you're here about tattoo parlours, now a lot of the men tattooists and women tattooists sexualising what they're doing. At no point in any fucking tattoo shop, and I've fired people for it, right? Should there be any ounce of sexualisation to what they're doing? They're putting their art or your art on your skin, and at no point does your sexuality have anything to do with it.
But also, I mean, I look at every single tattoo I've got and I remember having it done.
Yep.
So if an artist then decides to infiltrate that experience by being flirtatious, saying something inappropriate, I mean, I'm probably one of the most inappropriate people on the fucking planet. My gallows humour is disgusting, but I can read a room. If there was an artist that I sat with that said something that tarnished and tainted that experience for me, I've got to look at that. You've now created trauma on top of trauma, if that is a tattoo that means something. Yeah. And that's something that anyone in the art world needs to be aware of. And it sounds a little bit, maybe a little bit arrogant to say, but that's the truth. If you do go through that, if you feel like you've committed or you're feeling too uncomfortable to pull out, if an artist creates a design that is just not sitting right with you, and you I mean, we're all entitled to go, could you just tweak that? Could you tweak that? If we're going so far away from the original plan, there's got to be that union between what the artist wants to create, because I've come to you, because I trust you and your work, and I've looked at your line work, I've looked at how you colour pack, I've looked at everything, and I've chosen to come to you for this piece. But if you're not comfortable with what I've come to you with, and you're like, do you know what, I'm not getting excited for that. I'm not going to be able to represent me properly in that piece of artwork. You're entitled to say no.
Yeah.
There has to be that unity of a mixture between what the client wants and desires and what the artist feels like they want to put on that person's and represent themselves permanently.
I find that when you are in a situation, right, that where we are talking to people about their wants, the main thing I'm thinking of is portraits.
Yeah.
We don't do portraits.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why. You give me a picture of a member of your family you want a portrait of, right? Okay?
Yeah.
Right. You know every nuance of that face.
That's it.
You have seen that face grow from the moment you're born
Yeah.
to whatever the end situation is, right? So if this person has passed away, you know what they look like through, and this photo is every part of that.
Yeah.
Every year, every mood, everything. Now, I can only give you a copy of that photo.
That's it.
And that photo does not carry all that information. So if you want to get a portrait, understand this. It's going to be, if they're good enough, a copy of the photo. It's not going to be the person. And portraits worry me. Not, right, you've got portraits of Hercule Poirot and flipping Sherlock Holmes, do you know what I mean? And these people, but their portraits are characters.
Exactly.
You can't get that wrong unless you're shit. And you do it badly.
I mean, we've all seen horrendous Marilyn Monroe portraits, for example.
Oh, shit.
The worst face to ever... Because everyone knows her face.
A girl walked in here, okay, and she came for another tattoo, and she said, I had the worst experience. And I'm like, well, what is it, mate? And she went, I went to this shop, right, and they said they could do Marilyn Monroe, and I saw their work, and it's all fantastic. She showed me it.
Right.
It's Margaret fucking Thatcher. Right? I shit you not, it was Margaret Thatcher. The woman was beside herself, right? Okay, luckily, it could be fixed, right? Luckily. Right, but Marilyn Monroe, Margaret Thatcher.
Slightly different.
What?
One is massively sexier than the other, and that depends on who you're after.
I mean, oh God, I didn't know what to say. I'm like, and I couldn't say, no, that's Marilyn. No, it's fucking Margaret Thatcher, mate.
Shit.
I grew up looking at Margaret Thatcher on the telly news, going, oh God.
But we all also grew up, like, kind of pining over Marilyn Monroe. Like, we know those faces, so anyone looks at that and you if that eye is slightly downturned or the hair is slightly wrong, you're gonna know it instantly, and no matter how good that artist is, there is, I mean, I think tattoo artist Kells, who does these, she is an absolute wizard. I don't know how she does it. I sit there really still and she comes out with this stuff, but it took her some time to sit and think whether it feels okay to do this, because it's a commitment that she's got to make. I'm going to walk around with this on my arm for the rest of my life, and proudly I chose my wedding dress he's proposed in order to show off my tattoos, because they're me.
They're part of you.
They're part of me, and also my dad and my nan aren't going to be there on my day.
No.
But they are with these. My dad's in my ring, like ashes, not ghostly.
Okay.
But they're here. They're on my arms. They're literally walking next to me. So there is so much meaning behind that. But also, you've got those little random tattoos that mean nothing, that just make you giggle.
Yeah.
But there is so much decision-making process that has to be considered for the client and also the artist. And I think often clients forget. As a client, I sometimes forget. I can come to you as an artist with an idea, but you have the authority to go, I'm not the right one for you.
Yeah. Oh, the other thing is as well, is that there is a stage where someone comes in and they go, I want this and I want that and I want this and I want that, and I'll go, well, I'm not doing that.
No.
And they go, what do you mean? I said, right, well, one, you've been with your boyfriend 2.5 weeks and you want his name on you, right?
Yeah.
Let me tell you what happens when you put somebody's name on you, right? Bang, it's done. Because all of a sudden you've got ownership.
Yeah.
And people perceive that as ownership. Right, there's a story that I tell, and the woman is no longer with us, so I can't offend her.
Yeah.
She came to me in my Hertford store years ago and said, I want my boyfriend's name across my back, and I want this and vines and all of that. And it was huge. And I said, okay, well that's great. Does your husband know? Does your boyfriend know you're here?
Yeah.
He said, no, he's getting out of prison. He's been inside for 5 years.
Okay.
And I went, okay. I said, you need to stop.
Yeah.
Right? This is a knee-jerk reaction to what's happening. He said, no, I want to celebrate. I said, how long were you together before you went inside? And she said, we were together 2 years, and I'm still with him now. And I said, right, okay, let me explain to you what happens when you come out of prison. You are not the same person. You right? Yeah. You're not the same person as when you went in. You are not the same character. You're either impaired or you have a different perception of life, right? So don't, and I said to her then, and I believe me, I know what I'm talking about. So when she insisted on having this tattoo, and it was expensive, right? I said no and sent her away. I came in the next day. She had come in knowing that I wasn't there. Yeah. And the tattooist there didn't know that I'd said no, didn't know anything about it. And had nothing to do, had a cancellation, booked her in. So I walked in and I just said, okay, look, there's nothing we can do now. Yeah. You do what you do. And then the tattoo was done.
How did it last?
8 days later, he got out of prison. He then told her that the marriage was over. It didn't stop to take breath. Yeah. There is no, they were boyfriend and girlfriend. The relationship was over. Yeah. He's getting all of his stuff. He realised in prison that he was homosexual and is in a relationship. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying that happens all the time in prison, right? That's the reality of that situation. And she then demanded that we covered it up and we did this and we did all this. And I just thought, look, this is what I'm saying to you at the beginning. And you've come into my shop and told an artist to do that. Right, and he's done it. And he's done it good. It looks great. Yeah. But now you're left with that. Yeah,
it's like you said. It's the branding of. There is definitely something with names. Yeah. Names and branding and ownership, but also that wider sense of responsibility. You took that ethical responsibility and went, just pause. Yeah. Just take a breather. Have a think about whether that's right.
Let's sit with him in that situation of yours. Yeah. For a while before you decide it. I get where you're going, celebrating the fact he's coming out. Just buy him a flag for fuck's sake.
Right, it's you're making a commitment by having a commitment, like by creating the ultimate commitment, which is inking something permanently on your body. Yeah. And that's great, and often that sense of commitment is forgotten in this whole process as well. I am literally committing my skin to this, unless I want to sit and go through hours of laser, which isn't going to happen. No. I'm committing to this, and also that artist is committing to having their work on my body for the rest of my life. I am a physical representation of Brad and Kells and other artists that I've gone to, and luckily they're really proud of what they've done. Good. But so imagine,
be, by the way.
Right.
Yeah.
Well done. But imagine if you weren't.
Yeah. Imagine if you're sat there knowing that your piece of crap is out there. Right. Right? It might not look like a piece of crap, but if you're the artist and you think that, how do you live with that?
But linking it back right to the beginning of you and I talking, imagine if you've created something fucking gorgeous. You are so proud of it, and I don't do any aftercare. I go out swimming, I go out in the sun, I go on holiday the day after, I'm in Tenerife, sunning myself up, no sun cream, nothing. And it's just
comes back patchy crap.
Horrendous.
Yeah, do you know what then happened? Look what you did to me.
Right.
Because the customer, 9 times out of 10, we have had it where the bloke has come in and gone, I fucked it, I've completely dropped the ball. I went to, there was one, I can't remember who it was, somebody did someone from The Walking Dead. I think it was Dave who used to work here, did it? Right. And it was bloody great. Yeah. And then they went to a festival the next day wearing tight jeans. Ripped the crap out of it. Yeah. So, just have a little thought for the tattooist when you're in a situation where you haven't looked after it and you picked it. Yeah. Yes, we'll fix it if we can. Exactly. But understand, we do that for free because we're standing by our work. If you don't look after it, why should we care?
That's it. And
obviously we do, but
again, it all comes back to trust, to boundaries, to respect, all of those things. This isn't just sticking some art on the wall, which is wonderful because it's a commitment that you're putting there, but you can take that down, you can chuck it away, you can sell it on, you can give it to someone else.
Movement.
Exactly.
With this,
it's stationary.
Also, don't see tattoos. There's no escapism from having that tattoo. If you've been tattooed, you can get laser, but talk to the laser specialist. They'll tell you Yeah, the black and blue come out. Green, you're screwed. That's in there forever.
Yeah.
Red as well, as it's a grey, it will fade through.
Yeah.
So and then you're left with a ghost of it, which means you have to have another tattoo.
That's it.
Which means you then have to be invested again enough to get this done. The sad thing about tattooing is because it's become so mainstream now, people don't think before they do it.
That's it.
Case in point, it just popped into my head. There was a guy who wanted a full Catholic sleeve.
Okay.
Right? Now that's fantastic. We all know that I love religious iconography.
Yeah.
I love all that.
Yeah.
I bought things from
You
you.
did.
Right? But I asked him, I said, why is that? Just out of interest.
Yeah.
And he said, oh, my nan was Catholic. And I said, okay, are you Catholic? No. I said, and then he asked for, and this is not ridiculing him, but it shows the perspective.
Right.
He asked for rosemary beads. Okay? Now, okay, that's quite funny. But I'm not saying that to ridicule him, right? But if you don't know that they're rosary beads, you're having the wrong tattoo, sweetheart. It's all gone horribly wrong in your brain.
Yeah. But also, having that understanding of what you have on your body, especially if it's I can't not wear a t-shirt and you see my arms. So there's got to be an understanding that what goes on my body in places where it can be seen, that is the first thing somebody looks at. If I've got a massive, like we said, sleeve representing Catholicism, the first thing someone's going to look at is that and go, oh, so you're Catholic then. If you then have to go through an entire story, which you might love to do, and go, and actually it's my nan and this and this and this and this, if you haven't thought about what you've got, and actually it could be really quite offensive.
Yeah.
I know you won't mind me saying it, Dan, but your first tattoo, the skull, it's not skull, the cross with the flames, stunning tattoo, looks slightly racist. It's not fucking racist, but when you were 18, that wouldn't have been a consideration. But actually, just again, power of the pause, just sitting there and going, what is this going to represent about me? I am more than happy to be represented by the artwork on my body and for someone to make a snap judgment about me the minute they see me. Because either you're going to think, bloody hell, you sat like a trooper, that line work is banging. They're going to have an interesting idea about me, or they're going to think about me negatively, and you know what, that's your story, that's okay.
Yeah, that's your problem. Yeah,
that's your problem.
People's perception of you, if you, and I'm going to say this again, I've said it before, if you're getting tattooed for other people to think something, then move on. Right? Because it's the wrong thing to do.
Yeah.
Right? And no, I can't tell you what to do, I can't do it. But if you're doing it for somebody else, it's the wrong game. So, with the guy with the Catholic thing, I turned around and said, look, mate, you don't, because he was talking Virgin Mary, prayer hands, the whole thing. And I said, do you know what? Right, what did your nan love? Right, she was Catholic, so there was Catholic guilt, I imagine, and or she loved Catholicism, and that was her rock. What did she love outside of that? Oh, do you know what? She always grew peonies, and I'm like, holy shit.
Here we go.
There you go.
Yeah.
So what he ended up with a shoulder piece with 4 peonies, because there were 4 different strands of the family that all linked to her. And I just said, right, so, and I said to him, I said, well, what if we did peonies instead of the whole sleeve? Do you want a whole sleeve? He said, well, no, I kind of thought that's what I should do. And I said, right, cool. And well done for your commitment to your nan.
Yeah, love that.
Right? But your memories of your nan will fade, and you don't have that religion. So you're going to want something maybe for yourself one day. So we did that, and he did that, and then he has now a full sleeve of things that he wanted, which turned out to be hot rods and stuff like that. And it's like, which is amazing. Yeah.
You as the professional took the time to have that conversation. If he'd walked into a different shop, maybe someone wouldn't have had that. So then it comes down to, again, shared responsibility. Whose responsibility is it to sit there and go, why? Ask that question, why? Is it the client's responsibility to sit and try and ponder that for themselves? Maybe if they're sat in trauma, maybe they don't have the mental capacity right now to think about why. They just want to sit there and get this done. As the artist, does the responsibility then fall on you? Does it fall on their parents' shoulders by going, no, you can't have that done? It's got to be a shared responsibility, surely. Yeah.
Is there ever a time where responsibility, how do I frame that question? Say we don't know anything behind it and we take it at face value, are we as tattooists then in the wrong for not questioning every tattoo that comes through the door?
I don't think so, because I think if that client comes to you with something, it is completely on them what they share with you. Just like as a therapist, I can't sit and question everything you tell me.
No.
I've got to take what you're saying, and this is your story. What you tell me in that moment absolutely is your truth. I've had many child clients who come in with a complete fabricated story of their world, and yet if I speak to their social worker, I don't disclose anything that child said to me, but their social worker is telling me, like, offloading and telling me that their life is fucking awful, they've got this, they've gone through this abuse, and actually we're in session 3 and this child's, you know, going walking through the park with Nan every day, and, you know, Dad buys him a chippy every Wednesday. Dad's died, Nan's in prison, like,
so that fantasy world is their coping mechanism.
Right. If they come to you and they share something with you, that is their choice. If they decide, if anyone decides not to share something with you, well, then that's okay.
Yeah.
You're dealing, and again, it comes back to boundaries and trust. You can only work with what comes to you.
So you have to wait for their truth to come.
If it ever arrives.
What happens if it doesn't? What, just out of interest, what happens?
That's their journey. If I know, often I will sit there, and part of my contracting quite often is, look, I'm a blunt cunt, I'm going to challenge you, I'm going to be honest with you. If I say something that pinches and makes you go, ouch, then tell me, because maybe we need to go there, but let's find out what's going on for you.
Are you allowed to trigger?
Sensitively.
Allowed is a strange word,
I as a working on instinct, if I feel like there's an elephant in the room, there is always a sensitive way to go, I really feel like there is something else going on with that. You've just told me this whole story about Dad, but we haven't spoken about Mum.
Yeah.
Talk to me about Mum. And then all of a sudden they go, and often it's about, therapy's like lace. What is said in the room is the fabric.
Yeah.
What isn't said in the room is the holes, and it's the holes that sometimes make up the larger picture.
Yeah.
So often I will sit there and go, do you know what, we've spent 5 sessions talking about your present life, but we've not, whenever I've kind of gone to childhood, you've deflected, you've gone somewhere else, you've spoken to me about your sister, you've spoken to me about your cousin, you've never brought it back to you, why do you think that is? And then if they sit there in silence, that's okay. Some people can deal with silence, some people can't.
Yep.
That's down to my professional kind of idea to gauge. But sometimes it is about what's not said. And just sensitively pointing out, I wouldn't say triggering, but pointing out something that often again it's down to wording. I might be way off base here, or I might be, you know, completely on the wrong side of the track or walking down the wrong path. But when you said about your boyfriend, like your mannerisms changed, you just sat a little bit differently. Am I picking up on something? And they might go, no. Okay, cool, well then let's carry on.
Yeah.
If they go, yeah, actually it hit me yesterday,
Bang.
then we can go to there.
Then cause and effect, you can carry
That's
on.
it.
Amazing. It should be said that I respect entirely what you do. I couldn't put myself in that. You know, I mean, obviously you're trained and you're a professional, and that's great. But also, you've got to be the right person to do this.
I think you've got to be slightly fucked up to do it, if I'm honest. You've got to have an element of curiosity about you, but also not be nosy.
Yeah.
And I love being nosy, love a murder mystery, but I can be nosy in my private life.
Yeah.
In that room with that client, also, you can sit in front of an abuse survivor, and they might not talk about abuse at all, but there are certain things that you connect with on a certain level that you just sit and you can feel.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes you can be an incredible therapist having not gone through much in your life. Yeah. And it could just be a natural calling for you, but I do think the therapeutic community is full of misfits and fuck-ups.
Yeah.
And one of my best friends in the entire world is a therapist, and he was in prison. As a teenager, he was involved in gang activity and accidentally murdered somebody or killed somebody in a gang situation. And from that, he came out of it, he put himself through uni, and he is one of the most incredible therapists I've ever had the pleasure of being in their presence. And I don't think, and I'm sure he'd agree with me, I don't think he would be as profound as he is without his journey. So, and I think with artists, there is, you know, tortured artists is, you know, the coined phrase.
Yeah,
you can be incredible without any trauma, but you know what the trauma's like, the little bit of icing on top. That just, you're the sprinkles. The trauma's the sprinkles.
Also, I mean, it's an old thing, and Dan probably relates to this as well. Like, you never write a song when you're happy, do you? Really? Right. Do you know what I mean?
If you do, it's a bit shit.
Yeah, well, then you go, oh yeah, well, I was good that day. Fuck off.
Yeah.
Right. I used to. What was the band? Distorted Breed. Right. Was the song, like, that band was just because I needed to stay clean.
Right.
So, you know, before, you know, with all the drugs all the life, but that band was a group of friends who would keep me clean. So we did that, but I decided to have a dirt rock band, and you write songs about the devil, right, and do all that. But then you obviously your life goes in and do all that. You know, the devil's a big, like, poster boy for all the things wrong with your world. But then you have this situation where, you know, I'm not unhappy. I'm not. In fact, I'm sorted. You know, better than I was last month. But I can't write a song about how fluffy I feel now and everything's beautiful.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? It's that anger from the past, or the twisted nature of my soul at that moment, is what gives me the ability to write those lyrics.
And linking it back to tattoos, that is the, you've got the recovery of it, and then you've got the processing of the trauma. And I think understanding, is this piece of art that you want me to put on your body about recovery?
Yeah.
Is it about representing the trauma? They're very different.
Yeah.
For me, my tattoos are about the recovery of coming through stuff. Yeah. However, I've got a tattoo on my leg of a Tabasco sauce bottle that is there. That is probably one of my potentially my favourite tattoo, because I was horrendously depressed, suicidal at 23, and was unable to function, completely unable to function. My nan had died. This fucker over here had just broken up with me. And it was awful, and I didn't laugh. I was just a shell. At 4 o'clock in the morning, me and my brother would sit and watch Bitchin' Kitchen on Food Network. Yeah. And she would say, she'd put on this awful...
a Canadian blonde punk woman.
Yes, she'd put on the most awful, like, New Jersey accent.
New Jersey,
But she would say, Tabasco sauce. And
that made you laugh?
Belly laughed. For the first time in months, with my brother, and now me and him have both got Tabasco sauce bottles on our legs in exactly the same place, as a representative of, do you know what, you could be really shit, but you did it. Yeah. And that's my recovery. However, it's okay to get a tattoo about your trauma. You just got to ask the question, is that representation, that physical representation that you're going to see every day. If you don't see it because it's on your back, you're going to know it's there. Is that going to be alright for you? And just asking that question.
I have a situation where I have a tattoo that is direct. I don't know how to describe it. Okay, I'll tell you the story, right? There is here, Joker in the Pack, right? That was done by a motherfucker of a man. He's a nasty fucker, right? We ended up getting to the point where he had threatened to kill me, and we were in a situation where that could have happened. Yeah. It didn't, because I sorted it. But I keep that on me, because somebody said to me the other day, or actually probably about 3 years ago, why don't you cover that shit? Why have you got it? And I said, you know what, I don't think about it, but when I do, right, that anger and that situation needed to be bookmarked on me. Yeah. And it's the only one that there is. Yeah. I mean, I've got my dog Sky, she died. Yeah. I mean, you know, so I had that. Yeah. Biscuit is because that was my child's name before he was born. Right? We've done all that, all this other stuff. But this, that was trauma. That situation was awful. And it got to the stage where, you know, there was actual conflict. Yeah.
It sounds like you used it as your fuel, though.
But then now, I don't think about it much, but then when anyone suggests covering it, I'm like, no, how do I'm going to... Because I think, and this might be a bit misguided, I think that's a part of me. Yeah. That conflict. Absolutely. I am conflict-driven sometimes, not so much now. But I was when I was younger. The only way I could get through was forming conflict. So instead of forming friendships, bang, I wanted conflict. I wanted something tangible, something I could feel. Visceral, maybe the word is. Yeah. Right? But now, I mean, now I've come out of that. Yeah. But I don't want to forget that. Because if I forget that, I may revert to that.
So you having that on your arm is such a powerful reminder of what you don't want to go back to. Yeah. And isn't that fucking powerful that art, putting something on your body, feels like a marker that you put down to go never again? Yeah. And that for me is the Tabasco sauce bottle. Yeah. That is, I was there, had the plan. What stopped me was that my brother was going to find me in the bath, and I couldn't put him through that.
No.
I knew how I was going to end my life at 23. That was it. I couldn't work. I couldn't look after the kids at school. Like, I was not okay.
Yeah.
And that was it.
I
I couldn't do my job, therefore, and I couldn't look after my dad. I couldn't do anything, therefore I'm a useless human being. There is no point in me being here. I'm done. And it took for me to laugh.
Yeah.
Yes, and therapy, but
Yeah.
to laugh and come out of that, and that Tabasco sauce bottle is the marker that I put down to go in. You are literally in bed, unable to move. You don't know if you've just shit yourself, if you're going to die, you're going to wake yourself up the next morning. You don't want to wake up the next morning. But to look down at my leg every day and see my brother when he's walking around in shorts in the house and see our little Tabasco sauce bottles and go, I came through that.
Yeah.
Bitch in kitchen got me through that moment.
That's mental.
Like,
It's
that's
mental
what
that I know the bloody thing
Right.
you're talking about. So yeah,
that
that's
half
fine.
an hour session
Yeah.
of laughing with Brad, who did it, with my brother, who sat there after me, and I got it at the same time as I got a Bike and Mice and Mars logo.
Right.
Like,
Right.
just that is the marker that you put down, and that is the power of tattoos when they're done fucking right and they're done by the people that you trust.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a really good thing to say to end as well, because we've talked a lot. Thank you so much for coming.